Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the news you trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Allevo seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. I'm Dusty Sonnenberg. Under cloudy skies, I've got 60 degrees on the barn thermometer. A few sprinkles did fall from those clouds that are over the extreme northwest corner of the state. Unfortunately, only enough to scatter the dust on the windshield. Interestingly, a local meteorologist said data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said northwest Ohio would need over 6 inches of rain in the next 30 days to end the current severe extreme drought conditions, and the odds of that happening are only a 1% chance. Taking a look at your agricultural headlines, the soybean markets are still on everybody's mind as they have been pressured by the tensions between the U.S. and China and a large Brazilian estimate that was released yesterday morning of their crop. For soybean export inspections, USDA reported the total for the 2025-26 marketing year to be 149 million bushels. That's down 26% from the previous year, a pace that continues to decline. Now, inspections tend to hit their marketing year peak over the October-November window, which paints a very concerning picture for demand currently, and this is compounded by the lack of weekly sales reports, which makes it difficult to track total shipments as well as sales paces amid China's boycott of U.S. soybeans. Now, CONAB Brazil announced yesterday they expect the country to harvest another record-breaking soybean crop in 2026, that estimated at 177.64 million metric ton. That would be up from their 171.5 million metric ton estimate for this year's crop, also higher than USDA's, and up from what USDA estimates at 175 million metric ton for that crop next year, as estimates were released in the September WASDE report. The agency is also expecting to grow 112 million metric ton over the next marketing year. That's a product of higher production as well as the recent decreased competition from the U.S. for that Chinese business. Let's take a look now at your weather forecast for a Wednesday, brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance, online at seedconsultants.com.
Clouds breaking up over the region as we move through the rest of this afternoon after a few spits and sprinkles trying to hold on in northwest Ohio this morning. I think we end up partly to mostly sunny by the time we get into mid-afternoon over a large part of the state. Sunny, warm, and dry again tomorrow, and I think we can squeeze out most of Friday. There's some moisture trying to move through the Great Lakes and Michigan on Friday, but I don't think it gets down to us. I'm more interested in what goes on later in the weekend. Saturday, a few hit-and-miss scattered showers. Saturday night, Sunday, that's when the front comes through, and it gives us all a chance at a quarter to maybe 1.5 inches of rain. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Well, to make a complete picture, we've talked about the weather challenges. We've talked about the challenges in the marketplace. Now let's talk about inputs. As 3 fertilizers saw significant retail price moves, now these were in opposite directions, that during the second week of October this year, as the survey was tracked by DTN, 2 fertilizers with significantly higher prices were DAP and anhydrous. DAP was 7% more expensive compared to last month. That had an average retail fertilizer price of $921 per ton. Anhydrous was 6% higher compared to a month ago. That with an average price of $814 a ton. Now, prices for 2 other fertilizers were slightly higher. MAP with an average price now at $922 a ton. UAN 28 was $419 a ton. There were 4 fertilizers that were slightly lower than they were a month ago. Urea led the way there. That fertilizer was 5% less expensive compared to a month ago with an average price of $601 a ton. Prices for the other 3 fertilizers were slightly lower than they were a month ago, with potash had an average price of $485 a ton, 1034O at $666 a ton, and UAN 32 at $466 a ton. Now, unfortunately, all 8 major fertilizers are higher than they were a year ago at this time. Potash is now 8% higher, 1034O is 13% more expensive, MAP is up 15% with anhydrous 18% higher, urea is 24% more expensive than a year ago, DAP is 25% more expensive, and both UAN 28 and UAN 32 are 33% higher looking back to last year. Stay tuned, we'll be back to take a look at your markets after this.
When you're buying seed, there's more to a transaction than money. You're exchanging time and trust, hoping each decision adds up at harvest. Seed consultant sales professionals don't take that lightly. With products made to excel in the Eastern Corn Belt and agronomic knowledge that stands up to the test, we're all about the same things you are: reliability and results. Buy into a better seed experience. Visit seedconsultants.com to view our corn and soybean lineup.
This is Ryan Metzger with Lice Mercantile, and I'm happy to say that we did receive the USDA export inspection data for the week ending October 9th. On corn, we loaded out 1.130 million metric tons. That was on the low end of expectations, but still ahead of the pace needed to keep with the USDA. On soybeans, we loaded out 994,000 metric tons. This was at the high end of industry expectations, but still incredibly below the pace needed to keep with the USDA target. On wheat, we loaded out 444,000 metric tons. This was also at the low end of expectations, but still on pace with the USDA targets.
And thanks, Ryan. Well, let's take a look now at your market numbers brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. December corn is trading up a penny and 3/4 at $4.14 3/4. November beans up a quarter penny at $10.06 3/4. And wheat for December down 2 1/4 at $4.98. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ohio AgNet.